What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel. And the world is still buzzing about what happened at NXT Halloween Havoc this past Saturday with obviously with Wesley becoming the brand new NXT North American Champion with the battle between Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade, and of course the triple threat match for the NXT title between Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, and JD McDonough. The world is still buzzing about it, but the question is, could there have been something different? Could there have been a different outcome? Could things have been the same? Who knows? Well, that is why for this week's episode of WWE's Biggest Issue, I'm going to be talking about those outcomes and give you guys a full in-depth review of what happened at NXT Halloween Havoc, and I'm going to be rating each match from 1 star to 5 stars like I always do with every other premium live event. So let's kick things off obviously with the ladder match for the North American title, which was between the former champion Carmelo Hayes, Oro Mensah, Wes Lee, Von Wagner, and of course Nathan Frazer. Now there were some key elements. There were some key things that I do want to bring up with this matchup. We saw Von Wagner throw Wesley from the ring literally all the way to the announce table, which I've never seen that before. I've seen Von Wagner throw his opponents into the WWE into the WWE universe. We've seen Von throw his opponents from the ring, onto the announce table, but never over the announce table, which was pretty insane. We saw Von Wagner get his ass handed to him countless times by a ladder at the hands of both Oro Mensah and of course Nathan Frazer. We even also saw as well Trick Williams and Robert Stone climb the ladder to try and retrieve the NXT North American title for their guy. Obviously Trick Williams for Carmelo Hayes, Robert Stone for Von Wagner. But of course it was all for naught as Wesley climbed the ladder and grabbed the NXT North American title. Now, you guys know this past year has been a roller coaster for Wesley. Obviously, he lost his tag team partner. They lost the NXT tag team titles. He had been on a sort of a losing streak of sorts at one point when he would, when he first started to become a singles competitor. But for the most part, he's been pretty impressive, and of course he is now the new North American champion. I'm gonna be honest, this was probably one of the more not the best ladder match that we've had for said North American title. In fact, I think the only one that was like the best one probably would have to have been the first one in 2018, where we saw Velveteen Dream, EC3, Killian Dane, Lars Sullivan, Ricochet, and Adam Cole, Bebe. In which, of course, Cole ended up picking up the victory by climbing the ladder and retrieving the North American title. And he had been champion for quite a while, actually, for several months before Ricochet took the title off of him, which it was bound to happen at some point. But I'm gonna be honest, despite the fact that this ladder match wasn't as good as the first one, it did have some pretty insane moments. Obviously, again, Von Wagner throwing Wesley over the the announce table. Von Wagner going through a ladder, which was obviously bound to happen at some point. And of course, too, both Stone and Williams climbing the ladder and just trying to grab the title, but both men were taken out and they were just knocked out cold for the rest of the match, and that was about the worst of it. I'm gonna be honest. Again, it wasn't that great, but if I'm gonna be honest, it was a lot better. This one was a lot better than the last one, which featured Carmelo Hayes, Solo Sikoa, Santos Escobar, Grayson Waller, and Cameron Grimes as NXT Stand and Deliver earlier this year on WrestleMania Saturday, which was a bit mediocre, if you will. So for this one, I am definitely giving this one 3 stars. But the question is, could there have been a different outcome? It's hard to say because it's hard to say because we know that Wesley had wanted the the shot at the title so bad. He wanted that title match so bad, but because of the fact that Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams kept attacking him, he couldn't get that opportunity. So could there have been a different outcome? If there was a different outcome, and let's say Wesley was completely taken out of the equation completely, I think the only other person that I could see taking the North American title would have to be, I would have to say, Oro Mensah. And the reason being is because Oro Mensah, he's a former NXT UK Tag Team Champion. He knows how far he would have to go to become NXT North American Champion. And with the fact that his old tag team partner Ashton Smith was taken out with an injury, that basically meant he was going at it on his own. But could we see Ashton Smith in NXT? Absolutely. It is a very high possibility that we could see both Mensah and Smith show up to NXT. It's very possible, but we don't know exactly. But Oro Mensah winning the title, I could definitely see it. But the problem is that, but the problem is how long he would be champion for, and we know full well that Carmelo Hayes, he's already due for a main roster call up. So his call up to the main roster, it's bound to happen at some point. It can happen at any given time. It could even happen tonight on Raw at the time that I am recording this video, which is Monday, October 24th. So it could even happen tonight for all we know. Could happen on SmackDown this Friday. Who knows? He is bound to have a main roster call up, so he's taken out of the equation. But with him now, being considered for a main roster call up, that leaves Mensah, Fraser, and Wagner to potentially go after Wesley and the North American title. And the question is, who? It's definitely going to be one of those 3, but I would say Fraser and Wesley going at it. I could see that happening, but again, could there have been a different outcome? Not exactly. I know that I said that maybe Oro Mensah could have won, but I really don't see it I really did not see it happen. I think Wesley was destined to win the NXT North American title hands down. But next up, we've got the spin the wheel, make the deal between Apollo Crews and Grayson Waller. I'm gonna be honest, this was probably the least favorite match of the card, for the simple reason that Grayson Waller, let's just be real, Grayson Waller is a prick. In fact, he's an even bigger prick than Javier Bernal. And if you guys had watched NXT Level Up over the last few months since its inception earlier this year, you guys know that Javier Bernal has slowly started to become a prick, saying that he's a mega star and that he's big body Javi. I mean, come on, really? Really, you're new to WWE. You shouldn't be thinking like that. You know, Grayson Waller's one thing, but Javier Bernal, nah. Nah. He's like a modern day Santino Marella. And that's saying a lot, because Santino was pretty egotistical, especially when he first became Intercontinental Champion. He was a bit of a prick, and we all know. This one, I'm not even gonna justify it. Honestly, I'm not going to make you guys suffer with this matchup. All I can tell you is that we know exactly what happened. Apollo Crews, threw Waller into the casket and slammed the door shut. He won the match. This was an easy 2 stars. This was probably not the best match, but at least now Apollo Crews was able to silence Grayson Waller, and he can now focus on going after the NXT title at some point in the future. We could even see that match happen at the next show, at the next premium live event, which will be NXT Deadline on, I think, December 10th. December 10th, I think, is what they said. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting, and I'm very curious as to when, exactly as to what else Apollo Crews will have in store for NXT. But could there have been a different outcome? Honestly, it really wouldn't have mattered. It really wouldn't have mattered. I think either way, Apollo Crews was gonna win no matter what. So, but next up we have Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. This was the other spin the wheel, make the deal matchup. But this match, the stipulation was made official on NXT a number of weeks ago, and it ended up being known as Weapons Wild, which is sort of like Extreme Rules, but it's a combination of Extreme Rules mixed in with Falls Count Anywhere. So that's basically Weapons Wild. Falls Count Anywhere, anything goes. That's it. Plain and simple. This was a rivalry based not just based on respect, but based on a friendship that went back years, and it was also based on popularity jealousy, because Cora Jade was popular enough as it was, especially with what happened inside of War Games last year, which we all know what happened. We all saw. In fact, I even talked about that as well last year, where we saw where it was Raquel Rodriguez, Io Sky, Cora Jade, and of course Alba Fire taking on all 3 members of Toxic Attraction and Dakota Kai, which was a hell of a matchup. And of course, in the end, Cora Jade was able to pin JC Jane to win War Games for her team, which was a hell of a fight. It was a hell of a fight. And then if you guys remember the rest of the card, we had Imperium versus Von Wagner and Kyle O'Reilly for the NXT Tag Team titles, that was what caused Wagner to turn heel, and he had been heel ever since. Cameron Grimes against Duke Hudson, hair versus hair. It was pretty nuts to say the very least. And then we had Roderick Strong taking on Joe Gacy with the for the NXT Cruiserweight title, which this ended up being one of the last title matches before what was it, New Year's Evil if I remember correctly, where we saw Hayes do battle with Roderick Strong to unify both the NXT North American and Cruiserweight titles. Which was a hell of a fight, by the way. Hell of a fight. And then, of course, to the main event, Braun Breaker was able to pin Tommaso Ciampa to win War Games for Team 2.0. So, if you guys don't know, Team Black and Gold consisted of Tommaso Ciampa, Butch, Johnny Gargano, and LA Knight. 2.0 featured Braun Breaker, Grayson Waller, Tony D'Angelo, and Carmelo Hayes, which was a hell of a fight. And yeah, Cora Jade had been extremely popular. She was a fan favorite up until Roxanne Perez showed up. And to be honest, I was not surprised. Perez had just won the NXT Breakout Tournament, the women's Breakout Tournament, to earn the right to face Mandy Rose for the NXT Women's title. And that was when Cora Jade, Jade and Perez had just become the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, and she threw that all away, which led to this match right here. Weapons Wild, hell of a war, literally another match that I feel like was mediocre, but at the same time it was actually pretty good, because this was basically Roxanne's big chance to not only silence Cora Jade, but by defeating her, she could put her focus back on facing Mandy Rose for the NXT Women's title. Yeah. You guys know, as I said, Mandy Rose and not Alba Fire. Spoiler. If you guys did not watch the result video, spoiler. Rose wins for obvious reasons. Plain and simple. But could there have been a different outcome with this matchup? It's hard to say. I think had Cora Jade not have taken her time to finish the match, I feel like, yes, Cora Jade could have won, but Roxanne Perez had way too much fight left in her, and all it took was pop rocks onto the chairs for Perez to pick up the victory. I really honestly, there could not have been any other outcome except Perez winning. But this one, three stars easy. I think this was definitely a 3-star matchup. Not the best, but it wasn't the worst either, I'll say. But if you want to talk about worst matches, I think this one and the previous match that I talked about before the Weapons Wild match, Julius Creed and Damon Kemp in an ambulance match, and it's very rare you will ever see an ambulance match in WWE. It is very rare. This one is another 3-star matchup because the stipulation was that if Julius Creed lost, his brother Brutus would have to leave NXT because apparently according to Damon Kemp, Julius Creed was the one with all the talent, and Brutus Creed was just a hothead according to Damon Kemp. But this rivalry was based on jealousy, hatred, and a faction divided, because as you guys know, Diamond Mine originally was Roderick Strong, Tyler Rust, Hachiman, and Malcolm Bivens, and then of course too, we know that Tyler Rust ended up getting released from WWE just a few weeks later. So Strong brought in Julius and Brutus Creed, and then of course Ivy Nile, and of course too, you guys know that Tatum Paxley, has always wanted to join Diamond Mine, so her and Ivy Nile could become the women's tag team champions in NXT, which I see that happening. But But once the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, the men's tournament, came to a close, that was when Hachi Man left, or not. He didn't leave. He let his contract expire. There were rumors swirling that his contract was going to expire. The rumors became true, and that was when Malcolm Bivens also left WWE. So that gave Roderick Strong the chance to bring in Damon Kemp, and that's when all the bullshit started. That was when all of the bullshit started, and it was not pretty, guys. It was not pretty. Which then obviously led to, Damon Kemp being the reason why the Creed brothers lost the NXT Tag Team titles. And this matchup came to pass. This is yet another 3-star match. It wasn't that great, but it wasn't that bad either. There really wasn't much. There's really not much to talk about, except that in the closing moments, it took literally at least more than a dozen chair shots to the back of Damon Kemp that gave Julius Creed the chance to throw Damon Kemp into the ambulance, shut the doors, and that was it. So with Damon Kemp now in the rear view mirror of Diamond Mine and the Creed brothers, now the Creed brothers can put their focus back on the NXT Tag Team titles. And the question is, could there have been a different outcome? I feel like no. Honestly, no. I really don't think so. I know that there were a lot of people that wanted to see Damon Kemp win, but let's be real, Damon Kemp had no chance against Julius Creed, because Julius Creed had been a part of Diamond Mine way longer than Damon Kemp, and Julius Creed was taught way too well. He was taught far too well by Roderick Strong. There was no shot. No shot. Next up, we got the NXT Women's title matchup between Alba Fire and, of course, Mandy Rose. And this whole thing, the rivalry started, this actually goes back earlier this year in the Women's Dusty Cup, where Io Sky and Alba Fire said that they were going to, instead of challenging for the Women's Tag Team titles, they decided to make the match between Jade and Rose a fatal 4-way to ensure that Rose did not walk out of Dallas NXT Women's Champion, but that did not work out. It backfired on them in the end. Sky ended up being injured. Jade ended up both Sky and Fire both ended up getting injured. Sky's contract was set to expire, but with Triple H, in power, he actually brought back Io Sky and also brought back Dakota Kai as well from the brink of being fired, even though Kai had already been released beforehand. But still, the match started earlier on in the show where Fire invited but just Mandy Rose into this haunted house. Fire left Dolan and Jane at the haunted house. She drove Rose's car with Rose in it into the arena, and the match had started, and Alba Fire was this close from becoming NXT Women's Champion. Had it not been for the rest of Toxic Attraction coming back, getting involved, and once again Mandy Rose with that pump knee strike, that bicycle knee strike that she calls Kissed by the Rose, to retain the NXT Women's title. And the question is, could there have been a different outcome? Yes. I feel like had Dolan and Jane not have gotten involved at all, or even if they did get involved, which they did, Fire could have kept, could have potentially had the, I guess what's the term called? Oh my god, I can't think of the word. The inhabitants, if you will, of the haunted house, keep the rest of the Toxic Attraction occupied, then yes, Alba Fire would have been NXT Women's Champion. This one though, I'm gonna give it three. I'm gonna give it 3 star. I can't speak. I'm definitely gonna give this one 3.5 stars, only because this one was a lot better than some of the other matches that were on the card. This one could have had a different outcome, but it is what it is. But we move on into the main event: Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, and of course J.D. McDonough for the NXT title. And the thing about this is that is 4 things. Number one is that you guys know that Ilya Dragunov earlier this year in the summer he had to relinquish the NXT UK title because of a severe ankle injury that happened at the hands of none other than Wolfgang in their match on NXT UK. So he basically came back for his quote-unquote rematch for a title that he never should have given up. He should have kept the NXT UK title, and he could have been the last champion in NXT UK before it went out, before it closed its doors. But it is what it is. The second key factor from this match is that JD McDonough kept staking claim that, oh, I'm the rightful #1 contender. Nobody's going to be getting that title shot except for me, and I'm not going to stop getting that title shot until I become champion. The third is that the last time prior to this matchup, the last time Breaker was in a triple threat match, he ended up losing the NXT title to Dolph Ziggler. And the fourth, one thing only: Austin Theory. Yeah. Austin Theory, Mr. Money in the Bank. We saw him on NXT last week, and we thought that we were going to see him cash in Money in the Bank. Turns out he didn't even show up. But this was a very hard-hitting... This was a very hard-hitting matchup. It was back and forth, non-stop action, bodies getting thrown everywhere. And the closing moments of the match, it took a spear to Dragunov for Breaker to pick up the victory. But there was a key element. There was one thing that gave Braun Breaker the chance to retain the NXT title. It was the fact that JD McDonough stopped the count for Ilya Dragunov to become NXT champion. Now, had JD McDonough not have stopped the match, stopped the count right then and there, Dragunov would have won easily, and the show would have been over by then. But it wouldn't have mattered. This was probably one of the best NXT title matches that we've had in quite a while. So I'm definitely going to be giving this one 4 stars easily. But could there have been a different outcome? Yes. Obviously, Dragunov could have won had it not been for JD McDonough stopping the referee's 3 count. But with that being said, overall, the card was actually not too bad. Not too shabby. It wasn't as good as, what was it, Halloween Havoc 2020. It wasn't as good as Halloween Havoc in 2020, but it was still pretty good. So overall, I'm definitely gonna be giving this card 3.5 stars. It was pretty good, I got to admit. But I'm very curious as to what we can expect from starting starting tomorrow night on NXT. Moving forward into NXT Deadline, which will be the final premium live event of the year, not just for WWE but for NXT as well. So I'm very curious about it, honestly. I'm very curious. But that brings me to the question of the day. Among the matches that was on the card, which match was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments below. And that will do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. And as always, if you guys are new to the channel, and you guys want more episodes of WWE's Biggest Issue, which get posted every Monday, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, follow me on my social media. Links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.